Kelvin. Thank you for coming and doing this session.
Thank you for inviting me.
That's all right. So Kelvin and I worked together more than 10 years ago when we were at Datacom. And after we worked together, you went back to China. Then you spent some time over there, and then you came back to New Zealand. You were telling me stories about your experience in China, and I thought it's worth having a session about that. So yeah, I'll just start by setting the scene a little bit in terms of what we've observed just across the world, just when it comes to dynamics and the Power Platform. So the first thing that was quite obvious, I was talking to Scott Duro, actually, who used to be based in the UK, and now he's based in Canada. I told him, did you notice any differences between living in the UK, working in the UK, and then going into Canada? And then what he said is that in the UK, it's always a partnership that you form with your customers, whereas when you go to the US, they're always suing you. So you do something, and then you made a mistake, and then they sue you. So, which is not great, but that's the same experience that I had working in New Zealand, is that most of our customers, they treat us as partners. We get together, we join forces, and then we do some work together. And I've also noticed that as you travel around the different cities in New Zealand, the industries are different, right? So in Wellington, quite often we would have public sector. Those will be our customers. But then I presented at the Digital Workplace conference down in Christchurch, the Ireland session conference, and it was all driven by agriculture and manufacturing, completely different than what we would get in Wellington. So the different capabilities and so on. And then we looked at the scale of implementations. And again, it varies depending on where you are. If you're up in Auckland, you'll be in the corporate world, the implementation will be significantly smaller compared to what you have in Wellington, for example. And all of those things, as I was talking to Kelvin, I realized that actually they have similarities in other countries as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And also just getting an understanding about the insight of the markets around the world drew a lot of similarities in terms of what was happening in China. So just to give you an idea, I was talking to someone who was based in Europe. He's in Australia right now, but he was in Poland, which is somewhere around on the east side, somewhere around here. And he was telling me that most of his customers are actually from the west of Europe, because east of Europe has cheap labor. So the Western European would hire the Eastern European that are cheaper to do the work, but also more or less around the same time zone. Now, in New Zealand, we would sometimes outsource to India, for example, to do some of the work, or we would outsource to the Philippines, but we don't often outsource to China. And then there's a story behind it as well. And then out of curiosity, I was talking to some people in the US, and I'm like, tell me more about the salaries of Dynamics professionals in the US. And they're like, it depends. I'm like, oh, give me a range. Like, I just want to know. And they said it's anywhere between 90K to 270K. I'm like, dude, that's a huge difference. Like, it's like 0 to 1 million, right? Give me something more accurate. He's like, no, it truly is. And he said, if you're on the West Coast, the salaries are lower than the East Coast, for example. And he said, if you work for a smaller company, it's not like if you're working for Avanade or Accenture or one of those larger companies that can afford those large salaries. So there's multiple factors that play a role in terms of salaries and so on. And as I was talking to Kelvin, and he was telling me about his experience in China, I'm like, that's the same thing that I experienced with other places. So Kelvin, do you want to start by telling us where do you live in China and what do you do over there?
Since you point at the map, I will point at the map too.
Right.
So where I base in China is on the east. It's the you can think it as Auckland of China.
Auckland of China.
Yeah, the Auckland of China. So it's like business center of China. So
Yeah, and Shanghai.
Yeah.
In Shanghai. Okay.
They call it like level 1 of China. So in Shanghai, you can still buy like kind of like cheese and all the amenities, but when you're going inland, it's lucky you could get us.
That's quite interesting.
Hong Kong is level 0. Shanghai is level 1. Level 2.
Oh, and then you go up the levels. Okay.
Yeah.
So being in there, where did you work?
Dependent project. So my first assignment was in Beijing, working for Universal Studio. So they are in Beijing, so they are one north, so they are around here. Yeah, so they are also a big city.
So hang on, from here to here, that's as big as all of New Zealand. So did you commute to, across those cities, or?
I do. So during the project, we have the 2 weeks on, 1 week off. So we don't need to travel like frequently to Beijing. So that's about 2 hours of by air. But in China, you also have bullet train, so you can like ride bullet train for 7 hours.
7 hours.
7 hours
bullet train.
So it's like a train travel 260 kilometers an hour. So the reason sometimes we for bullet train is one is like you wait less. Like in airport, you need to do security checks, more security checks. But bullet train, you can just they're less, and then you like you need to wait less as well. And on the bullet train, you can also like have like meetings because you can still have your like a cell phone out, you still have your connection. So what typically happened is like for the 2 weeks onset period, Monday we were Sunday night we were travel there. So do the 2 weeks, and Friday lunchtime we will come jump on the train. Then on the train we will do maybe the spring wrap up, spring review. So we were kind of having the meeting while sitting in the train. So the only problem is like the 4G network, the downlink is good, but the uplink is a bit scratchy. So if you're sitting on a train and having the meeting, you couldn't like talk, like type. So type.
That's funny because I do the same when I take the train to Upper Hutt, but I don't talk because I don't want to bother people around me. Like, I would listen, but like I think you mentioned, and I have the same problem. Sometimes you get to dead spots like a tunnel or an area where there's not enough connection, and then you would disappear for a minute and then come back. They're like, "So what do you think?" And I'm like, "Can you repeat the question?"
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Same here. Like if you go through a tunnel,
you
get missed for like 2 seconds, 10 seconds.
And so when you went to work, like just into the normal office rather than to a customer, did you commute as well, or?
Yes. So the daily routine typically is like you wake up in the hotel, you have breakfast and jump on taxi, carpool, taxi pool. So I have a 30 minutes trip to the site because the Universal Studio, they bought a very large site on kind of suburb of Beijing because center you couldn't have that piece. Oh, by the way, that piece took 10 years to secure. The actually building the theme park from scratch took like 2 years. But to secure that piece of land, like 10 years. So it's like kind of give you kind of a different horizon of like business planning, how they secure those things. The horizon is long.
Yeah.
But that's but also it is their moat or their kind of barrier, like no other can do. We can spend another 10 years.
Okay. So well, actually, it's interesting you're talking about that because you were telling me the same story about the Azure data centers in China. So there is, what is the region called? China, like in here, there's New Zealand North, there's Australia, and so on. You know what it's called?
I think normally they just call like Asia China.
Azure China.
And China, but within that they have than center.
So they have geo redundancy in China as well.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. And what was the experience like using the Chinese data centers and the Azure over there?
So, put it simply, the Azure China has less features but expensive.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
but sometimes for some solutions you have to use it because of the government regulations and the laws. So for the data sovereignties, you have to.
Do they have any regulation that whatever's in China needs to be like using Mandarin or Cantonese or have like Chinese understanding? Not necessarily.
No, not those kind of. It's more like your personal identifiable information is to be stored in China. Oh, actually, there's a concept called CIIO, so it's critical network information infrastructure operator. So which means like if you are a network operator running a network, or you're running a electricity company, you're running a hospital. Yeah, those kind of called like critical infrastructure. So the data collected from those critical infrastructure could be stored in China. If the data needs to be transferred outside China, there's another regulation called the cross-border data transfer regulation. So it's like regulate how much you can transfer.
So strict laws around what you can get in and what you can get out as well.
About what can get in, but what can get out. Or you mean
like
what it can collect?
Yeah, exactly. What you can collect.
Yeah.
Okay. So just talking about Azure, and then you said it takes a while to secure the site, to secure the environment, and so on. In New Zealand, we're lucky that we're in the Power Platform and dynamic space because it dominates the market compared to Salesforce. In the US, it's not the same. Salesforce is number one with 60-70% of the market share. And Dynamics and Power Platform are the smaller player, but they're growing significantly compared to what Salesforce are doing. So given that, like what you were talking about, securing an area, getting all the approvals, and then becoming established, and then the barrier of entry becomes really high to competitors. So are there other competitors like Salesforce in China?
Yeah, the dynamics change. So for Salesforce, until recently, they don't have a data center in China, but only from last year, I think they partnered with Alibaba. So now they have now they have China. But before that, while I was there, they don't actually have a data center in China. So one of our selling point is Microsoft Azure. It's a cloud-based SaaS solution, and it's based in China. Your data is safe. You don't need to worry about regulations. It's one of our selling point, and it's also they actually can win some major customers from Salesforce to migrate to Dynamics. For example, I think they are online, so I can say the name. The GSK, the pharmaceutical company. They are China division. I think last year, the version 1, and they moved to because of that.
Because of that advantage.
Okay. I think one of the main motivation for them to move.
Okay, cool.
And another advantage of Microsoft, no one works on-prem nowadays, right? But that's also a valid reason some company work. So for my first client in China, the Universal Studio because back then X365 online is still not available in China. So they went for the on-prem. It's about to go online, but Microsoft couldn't give definitive date. So decision
to stay on-prem. And sort of, so Universal Studio, I'm assuming that was a customer service type of thing, like storing information about customers, salesy type of implementation?
It's not too salesy. It's more like service. So
Customer service.
they call it guest.
Okay.
The guest management.
Yeah.
Guest engagement management system. So it's manage the guests and also their guests, and also, you know, for example, people into the site theme park lost stuff. They have like so like
And then
find lot and then knowledge base for their service center, and they also have operation management. So like within the site, they have like shows, different attractions. Shows come out different time, and some shows don't come out in week time. So it's all and how long is the queue?
Right.
So they call it virtual queue.
Yeah.
Those kind of information could be into the system.
Dynamics. Oh, so it integrates with our system.
So the virtual queue is another system, but information will feed in. So Dynamics is used as management, first centralized management.
Yeah, and I think this is something quite common that we see in the industry, is that your system never sits by itself. It's always integrated with other systems. So the virtual queue management is a very good example where it's part of a wider ecosystem. With the Department of Internal Affairs, we've got other systems such as the registers that contain the official information, the passport systems, the whatever regulation and so on. So we just integrate with all of that as opposed to get it to live by itself. What are the other industries that sort of you interacted with? So other than this type of guest management system, were there other systems that you built similar or completely different?
The last assignment is for a resource company called NZBAS24 from Brazil. Yeah, Brazil. Still IMO. So they are Australia has the biggest IMO. They are the biggest IMO producer, but Brazil is the second biggest. So they are entirely different because they are more to business, not to the client. So they can get away with still having all this SaaS platform, so spacing the difference on their Chinese style. It's using kind of so they don't need another system and we integrate it. Yeah. So it's a different kind of strategy. Only thing is for their they still have like external users, so all that like steel mills. For those, we have built another kind of portal, have a buffer inside of China, so for synchronized data. But for internal users, they just use it.
So was it due to latency that the performance was bad, or distance, or?
Yeah, I think the latency is one thing, is a factor. Another is I think cross-border.
Right.
Border like data like transfer. Yeah. Sometimes, reasons it's like
reliability.
So so and that's the impact on the customer experience.
Yeah.
So that's why, because it's external facing, so it's very important for them to set up something.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's another good example of not to accept the out-of-the-box capability, to look at ways of enhancing that experience by introducing the local portal that has all of that information buffered, so you don't have to worry about that. So it's good. Like those are completely different industries that you worked on. But then going through that example that I was saying, that in New Zealand, we used to get quite a lot of people from India, but recently, and talking to Shobit, they've been saying that a lot of Indians are actually going back to India. And the reason why is because India is now offering salaries that are comparable to New Zealand, so almost at the same level. And cost of living is significantly cheaper in India. So a lot of them will decide, well, have family support over there, and I've got to everything that I'm used to. So I'll stick to India as opposed to come to New Zealand. However, they do say that the main difference is the work-life balance. So in India, you're expected to stay up late, whereas in New Zealand, you may finish at 5 and then have the afternoon or the evening to yourself. I was drawing a parallel to the Japanese culture, where I know over there, out of respect to your boss, you have to stay up till your boss leaves the office. So once the boss once the boss leaves, then you can leave. And before that, it's disrespectful to leave before them. And then I always thought it would be so terrible to have a middle-aged boss that is not married, that likes to drink, and is a workaholic. So you have to stay up late with him and then go out with your boss to have drinks and then get drunk every night. So what is the work-life balance in China? And also, like the same story that I said about the US, East Coast and West Coast, is there a salary difference between different regions, or does it have to do with working with multinationals compared to local companies?
I think for multinationals, for example, the company I work for, their salary is just slightly lower than you, but not pure dollars. But the purchase power in China is slightly better. So, for example, if you buy a Happy Meal from McDonald's, and it costs like $5.50. New Zealand is like just last week and $9 something.
$9.
$9.20.
It's always like either a Big Mac or the Whopper, or a beer. How much? What is that? That's the standard unit of comparing different cultures. But it's interesting you use the Big Mac, because that would be an American
Happy Meal.
Right.
I don't eat it myself. But
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll just connect my laptop.
You need to connect that. I keep going while you connect.
So we talked about the hierarchy.
And let me use your map again. So in China we try to have because we try to have a competitive project. So we not Russia, but a part of China, very close to Russia. So they are kind of cheaper. Can get like 30% cheaper.
Okay.
Internal cost wise, I don't know how much they get paid.
Yeah.
But internal cost wise.
That's like Poland and West Europe. Same analogy as well.
But we also resource from India as well for the universal project.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Back then, I think now it's English. Yeah. Salary is much more. Back then, like years ago, I think India resource is like half price of Chinese resource.
Right.
Same level.
Right.
So actually.
And that's interesting, because to me, like, China is cheap manufacturing, right? But I think it has to do with the skill set.
I don't have an answer to your question. It's like why it is like cheaper.
Yeah.
You're right, but I don't have an answer why it is cheaper. But I think maybe because of the company, like I'm working for a small service for local company. Actually, I saw another job ad another day. So a local company was asking for entry-level architect for $100K. Entry-level architect.
Yeah.
Local. It's cheaper, right? So,
yeah, cheaper. It's interesting. So we were talking about the hierarchy and the respect to the hierarchy and so on. Is that something like in New Zealand? I feel like it's quite flat. Like I can just go and talk to my boss and tell him off for doing something wrong, and I don't feel bad about that. Whereas, at least like from the Middle East where I'm from, there's that respect. Like if someone older, then you have to respect them. something that happens. But is it the same in China or?
You don't typically find people too old. Yeah,
Tea or?
yeah, so it's I myself consider old.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So Hurricane, I don't feel much. Evelyn is they're very good at promoting like diversity.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't feel that. Although my boss is quite capable, so I never need to go involved.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. But even from a structural, like corporate structure, do you have that respect? The higher they are, you have to take their word and respect them, or is it more open and you can just have an open and honest conversation with them?
We can definitely influence. Yeah. So I mean, Evelyn is quite good, but I think for local company,
Right.
I don't know. I never worked.
So the American influence or the international multinational corporate has a different dynamics than what a Chinese organization would have. That's interesting. Right. So we talked about sort of the compared to other areas and so on. What do you feel is like the strength of sort of China, especially like you were there after COVID, is that right?
Before COVID.
Before COVID.
So I go in. I left off New Zealand for China June 2019, just before. So half a year later.
Yeah.
Kind of
And then you were in China when
Yeah.
the
That's why I stayed longer than planned.
Okay. And what was like, did it have an effect on the economy or were they strong and they knew how to navigate all of that?
When it started, it's okay. I think the when last year, 2023, you different feel it. You different. So for example, my daughter goes to a private school. Before, it's very hard to find a placement. But once it is like so many people left, it's quite easy to.
Wow. Okay. But from an like from work perspective and like opportunities and so on, is it still going strong or like what was it like?
No, I mean, I don't have the statistics, but my experience is so what happened to some of my colleagues is if you're on bench, company will ask you, like, for example, you're on bench for 2 months. Company will start ask you to take unpaid leave. So last year was for everyone actually. It's for people on bench to take 6% or 70% of the normal pay. The rest is like unpaid leave. But this year I heard an extreme example from one of the big four. They only pay 1 day a week.
1 day a week?
Yeah, 4 days yeah, they're paid.
If you're on the bench. But is
or like after maybe a month or two.
So consider yourself lucky that you're actually there's someone you know Noel Griffin?
Oh yeah. My boss.
Yeah, your boss, of course. So he was he was telling me about his experience in China. So they passed a regulation that expats are not supposed to be earning or have high level jobs. So someone came to him. He's like, okay, now they've introduced that law, so you're going to get demoted, and that's it. Like from now on, you're never going to get a salary increase because that's the maximum that you can get. And they're like, that's the bad news. It's like, so what's the good news then? It's like the good news is that we're not deducting from your salary. It will just stay as it is. So it is extreme cases where they actually can deduct from your salary, and then. But is it?
I never knew that.
Was it their fault that they were on the bench, or was it like just the downturn, or what was it exactly?
I don't know. I'm not economist. Yes, could be because I mean I can speak for Evana. So I think what happened is we still have the existing customer. We don't get too much new business. So, yeah, that's the problem. And think that's a good segue to talk about how, in company how they working.
Yeah.
What's the budget? So so I think the management was realized this like trend early on. So they were I think that they are the internal part and external part. The external part, they have two strategies. One is called China for China. So yeah, I think that's resonates the US kind of like handling. So lots of company wants like kind of plain separation between the China. They still want the profit. They wanted the operation cleanly separate between the China operation and the rest. So this is our opportunity. So we typically will build a solution, a solution in the China data center for the so they have a like clean segregation. Another is called Go Global. The target customer for that is typically a Chinese company. For example, BYD is not our customer, but just an example.
Just an example.
Yeah. Like they want to sell product across globe, and they want to go to places outside China. So to those kind of companies, Chinese companies. That's the two strategy, like external, internally. They lots of training. So like emphasis on like T-shaped. T-shaped talent.
Wow.
So you are specialized in your vertical. You also like yeah, and they will ask different teams. For example, the data team, security team, modern workplace team, infrastructure team. They have those teams. They will ask them to internal present to the rest of the team, and they will pick for other team. They will pick the client leads and more of them. Some people client leads, and they will learn the pitch, practice back to the leadership. So that way, when you go to client, the opportunities you can have like elevate kind of pitch to them. The goal is not for you to be an expert, but you know what you're capable of. If they're demand a whole. So that's the key.
Okay, so they have enough understanding of the business, and then
so typically in those like pitches, like you have the numbers, you have like anecdotal stories or examples, and so basically you have numbers, say before after numbers, and how much money, say, the performance increase, things like that. So yeah, basically, so those numbers like to the customer when there's opportunity, or just when you have like opportunity, maybe having with customer, maybe or something.
Selling and
Yeah. So that's one thing internal. Like they have like just pure training for internal way. They are like just training.
Yeah.
So basically they are like what they do externally, internally. And of course you have like voluntary, like paid leave, which are cutting the costs.
Okay.
I think the struggle is for Evanet, there's two big sectors. One is they call the developed. It's like in Australia, US, UK, and they have like growth market, which is China, Brazil, and India. Back then, I think India is now probably more, but back then, India is pure development. So like they don't sell anything, only use system. Yeah. But the problem with China at the moment is the growth part. It's surely they're still making money. Hopefully the growth, you need like more than expected growth.
Oh, that's really good. So we're just getting to the end of the time.
Yeah.
Just some final conclusions. So, like one of the things that we're talking about is, do you feel like China's isolated, or do you feel like it's part of that it's integrated with the rest of the markets, and also just regarding like an insight on what the future look like there is struggle in growth. What do you think is going to happen in that space?
So is China isolated? It's a good question because I got asked that question the other day. I can see why people feel that way because like in China, you don't have Google, you don't have like Facebook, right? But it's more like a parallel universe. We have like an equivalent of everything. So you have like Baidu replace Google.
Okay.
You have like a WeChat to replace WhatsApp,
Yeah.
Facebook,
Nice.
and for like the product we are selling, Dynamics, like China data center, same product, these features, but it's available. So it's parallel universe. But also, if you want, you can still like purchase a virtual private network. You see the company outside of China if you want. So for me, I don't really feel isolated, but you never know one day. What else?
Would you recommend the people here to go to China and work there?
Depend on the other ones.
I'm asking on her behalf.
You should. I think depend on the life stage. If you're really young, you want the experience. I think it's not bad.
Like Noel. Noel went there when he was young and he experienced the whole Chinese.
Yeah. I think that's for that year, but like for if you need a family to take care of, it's a good place to have exposure.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.